And so we've come to this moment in our time that we're going to do a talk. And the talk that Maggie and I are going to focus on is the mystery of God. Mm-hmm. And what's happening in our lives is so mysterious. And when we first went through this, I thought, how impossible can we have church and not all be in church together? It's a great mystery to me. And I'm still trying to find my way in this. And what's true with the mystery of God is it's an ongoing mystery. Mm-hmm. And is there anything you want to say to start?
It is a mystery, and we have the opportunity through this process, what is playing out right now, we have the opportunity to really dig deep and cling to each other and experience the divine in our inter- and intrapersonal connections differently than we may be accustomed to. So I'm trying to look at this through the lens of imagination. Yeah. And look for ways to connect differently and have an enthusiasm about that right now.
Yeah, beautiful. So we're going to start with this first quote. It's by Wayne Dyer. I love Wayne Dyer. He's a great man. He used to be a member of our church at Unity Church of Maui. In a universe that's an intelligent system with a divine creative force supporting it, there simply can be no accidents. As tough as it is to acknowledge, you had to go through what you went through in order to get where you are today, and the evidence is that you did. I love this because in a roundabout way of saying it, you've made it this far. Mm-hmm. You've made it right here to this moment. And everything that's happened before this moment is what was necessary for us to be right here, right now. Mm-hmm. So no matter what challenge that may have been, if we've moved through that, it's given us the spiritual food, it's given us the lesson, it's given us strength, it's given us deeper confidence. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a value on this journey of really understanding what am I going to do today and discerning where is God, what is God, why is God?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great place to start with all of those questions and a lens that we look through to see the opportunity of growth and stretching ourselves through those things that we find uncomfortable. So could you flip back to the first slide of this quote?
Of course.
In a universe that's an intelligent system within a divine creative force supporting it, this is saying to me that we are a part of a universe that is informing itself constantly. So everything that we are going through right now, and it feels like a really big challenge, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel challenged, must mean that we are at a time where we can absorb from God's perspective, pointing out our opportunities of growth. This has to be really big, really uncomfortable, and we may just have a really big positive outcome. That's the truth that I cling to when I am most uncomfortable in my life. And I'm only able to do that because I've been really uncomfortable in my life. Yes. And I've stayed in the ride. I've stayed on the path long enough and gone far enough to be able to look back and go, oh, that's why I had to do that. So whatever is playing out right now, we stick together. We know that this universe is informing itself. And maybe a week, maybe a year, maybe 5 years down the road, we look back together and say, oh, that's why we went through this. Yeah. And look where we are. Look how far we've come now.
Beautiful.
The Buddha says, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and your affection. In the terms of this being tied to the mystery of God, I find it such a mystery, and we've talked about this recently in a lot of our services, especially going through the Lenten season, at how easily we look outside of ourselves and how easily we are able to express love to one another. But how challenging it is at times to simply love ourselves. And as this has come up in our services for the last several months, I'm reminded that I have to be able to do for myself before I can do for others. And if I am not doing for myself, then I'm not doing as fully for others first.
Yeah. And something true about this as well is this is ours no matter what. We have this divine inheritance. Mm-hmm. We have this innate ability. And each of us is one, but each of us is unique. So there's a particular expression of God that moves through each of us, and we need to own it. We need to respect it. We need to adopt it as our way of being. There's no accident that we are here right now. Mm-hmm. And our particular light needs to be shined. And the only way we can do that is to do it by deep self-love, mm-hmm. by a responsibility to love self. And if we're loving ourselves, we're loving God. And that is where we can connect with God. Because God is everywhere present, but the place we can have a tangible sense of it mm-hmm. is by connecting to God in us. And one of my favorite words for God is love. Mm-hmm. Is that divine love that's unconditional. And if I can look at myself with that same unconditional love, then I'm able to really live my life more fully.
That's beautiful.
I love Annie Lamott. She's a New York Times bestseller, and she's a dear friend of mine. I love this. The first holy truth in God 101 is that men and women of true faith have always had to accept the mystery of God's identity and love and ways. I hate that, but it's the truth. I love Annie because when she writes, I read and I laugh out loud. Her humor is wonderful. But this is so true. We need to come to the knowing in our spiritual maturity that this is the truth we know. We don't have to seek it at all. We know that we are one with this mysterious presence that's everywhere present. And it's that identity, that love, and that ways of how we move and live and have our very being.
I love the part in this quote that says, I hate that. I hate not knowing an outcome. I have an innate sense, as do all of you, of knowing when something's coming, knowing when a shift is about to happen, knowing when the undoing of something is in progress. What I am not so great at doing is waiting and faith and affirming the truth that my highest and best is always at the forefront of the creation for me by God. And so I get really fussy. I have the temptation and take action to want to take the steering wheel away from God. Like, I know better. I want to drive this bus to what I think is my best outcome, where I think I need to be next, the next version of myself, right? Mm-hmm. And what I'm in essence doing by trying to intercept this process is, one, I'm slowing it down, and two, I am limiting God, or at least I think I'm limiting God. Really, I'm just inhibiting the unfoldment and the beauty and the scenery and the glory of watching it all through truth. Mm-hmm. I hate that I don't like sitting with uncomfortable feelings. And I love knowing that when I'm uncomfortable, when I'm feeling uncomfortable, when I'm scared, that's where the work is for me to do. It points right back to me. I love and I hate that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So from Colossians 1:26 through 27, it says, "The mystery hidden for ages and generations, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory." I had to, we were talking about this yesterday, I had to think about how old this text is. How far back does this story of the mystery hidden for ages and generations go? And I was reminded of one of my classmates gave a talk and told a story in our homiletics. Homiletics is the art of preaching. She gave this story, and it resonated. I don't remember facts. I don't retain these things. I can tell you what color shirt you were wearing 4 years ago on this day, but facts, not so much. So this story stayed with me. And she told it from an ancient Hindu legend that said that there was a time that human beings were also divine and that we abused our divinity. So the god Rama, who served as chief, took away our divinity. And he gathered a council of other gods to say, now what do we do with this? And they said, oh, I know. We'll bury it deep in the earth. And Brahma said, no. These people will dig into our earth and they will look endlessly there. And they said, okay, well then we'll throw it into the deepest depths of the ocean. And he said, no. They will learn to swim and they will learn to dive and they will go to the depths of the ocean for their divinity. So the god said, well, we could put it buried deep in a mountain. And he said, again, they will climb that mountain. They will drill into it. There is no lengths that these people will not go to reclaim their divinity. And so they said, we don't know. So Brahma gave it some thought. And he said, I know. I'm going to put their divinity right in the heart of them. So for ages, we have scoured the earth and we have dove deep into the water and climbed up to the mountain, taken on unseemable feats, when right here, the work, the digging, the diving, the loving, the scouring, to get to the heart of our divinity, to be the expression, that mystery is solved when we know it's right in the heart of us.
That's so beautiful. And isn't it true that one of the greatest ways we can... It's interesting that all of our senses are pointed out. Mm-hmm. So our touch and our taste and our sight, it's all pointed out, and yet the only way where we find wisdom and knowledge is within. And we need to shut down, minimize our constant grabbing of information from our sense world by coming home to that truth. And how challenging it is to actually adopt a regular practice of prayer and meditation, which is a time when we can calm those senses and simply be and listen. And I think this is a very telling part of what we can do right now.
That's
as
right.
we're spending so much time at home. We don't have to spend all of our time on television. We can read inspirational literature, like this fabulous fasting and feasting brochure, which was the genesis for this talk. And taking time to meditate and pray is a great step for discovering our wisdom and knowing that truth. It's beautiful.
It is.
This is Eric Butterworth, a great Unity minister who wrote some very wonderful books. And he wrote this in, or it's placed in the Fasting and Feasting booklet. You may wonder about the vastness of the universe and peer at it through a telescope. However, you are not on the outside looking in. You are on the inside looking out. You are the universe at the point where you are. I love this because Eric Butterworth simply boils down to it right where you are as a universal being, expressing yourself, being yourself, you are. I love that.
I love it too. And I love that I have a new soundbite that I can offer my mom. I can hear in my childhood mind her saying, Maggie, do you think the world revolves around you? And I can say, according to Eric Butterworth, yes. Yes, it does. And here is why. Because I am the only one who is experiencing my universe, my way, right now. And the responsibility that we have is to monitor and maintain dominion over our thoughts. Because as we know in Unity Principles, we believe, we see, we know the truth that our thoughts are creating our experience. We're not only creating it for ourselves, though. We're creating it as an expression of God. Reverend Ellen Davenport, in her book, The 5 Principles, says and challenges us to each see one another as the Messiah in disguise. So I need to maintain my perspective through this telescope as an expression of the purest love, the purest truth, the purest light of God, because wherever I shine that, it is landing on the face of God. Your face.
Love that. And that reminds me of Mother Teresa, she was a school teacher in Belgium, and she had a spiritual transformation that had her recognize that every being is Jesus. Every being is Jesus. And then her testament is just delivering that knowing to the poorest of poor. This is Jesus. This is Jesus. And as we can know that for ourselves, not from a place of egotistical knowing, but how much more we can do when we practice the teaching, the healing, the knowing of the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven within us, that our master teacher Jesus has taught us and gives us.
Right.
It's quite beautiful.
Yes. And Alan Watts was a British author. Is that right? Do I have
Yes.
that? Yes. World-renowned, genius in his sharing and knowledge and wisdom. And he says that you and I are all as much continuous with the physical universe as a wave is continuous with the ocean. I think we've probably, tried to explain the difference between all that God is and all that we are being God and an expression of the Christ. So if the ocean is a visualization, the vastness, the furthest reaching vision of God, we are, as a wave, an expression of that as being the Christ. We are a part of it, and we serve our own unique purpose, bringing the tide in, bringing different food sources to different food sources, different life substances to different life substances. And we don't know. It's not our business to know how we are serving as the connective tissue in our own individual expressions of the Christ, of that essence that God is. We just need to keep it clean. We just need to keep it true and pure and show up authentically in connection with one another.
Beautiful. I also like what this tells or shows, this metaphor. You cannot remove a wave from the ocean. It's always part of the ocean. We can't, any of us, be removed from God, only in our mind. But that's not the truth. It's just a thought. And that thought can be changed to know that we're always one with God. Because, as we say every week, there's only one power and one presence in our lives and in the universe. What's that power? God. And that is what, it is mysterious. It really is mysterious. And so, let's go to this, which I love to call on that mystery. This is St. Augustine, and I love this. God is the circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. Now, that speaks the mystery. God is everywhere present, and there's no exception in us, everywhere present. And yet, we know by our physicists that the universe is expanding. There's no limit, there's no circumference, there's no boundary to God's existence. And so we can muse and amuse ourselves by the mystery. But what can give us spiritual food and fuel is by accepting and acknowledging, respecting that truth that God is within us. And there we can actually do what Jesus did, what all the spiritual avatars, what Mother Teresa did in affecting the globe in a small part of her lifetime. And this is where we can manifest and bring wholeness to even this situation where we're distancing ourselves from others, washing our hands, keeping health and wholeness, and practicing these truths. If we know our truth in this oneness, we can do anything, and there's no lack.
That's right. And one of the things I've struggled with is knowing this truth and maintaining my responsibility to be this truth and see God in all of these unfolding circumstances. So if we look at it again, God is the circle whose center is everywhere, meaning every living thing, every expression, every beating heart on this planet is the center point of an expression of God, and whose circumference is nowhere. So it is for me to hold the space when I want to be in judgment, and I've had to switch my bracelet too, of how our world leaders may be handling this situation, or decisions that are being made, or my attitude about how I think this might go or what the outcome might be. What I need to do and where I'm focusing my energy is to hold the space, to hold the outer ring of that circle, to allow others to rise up in fullest expression of their truth, of the center point of their existence as an expression of God, and fill that space to their highest capacity, to their best capacity, and support the truth from that perspective. It's definitely keeping my bracelet from hopscotching back and forth.
That's very good. Thank you.
And Dwayne Dyer says, a mind at peace, a mind centered and not focused on harming others, is stronger than any physical force in the universe. We can use our mind to create the worst of circumstances or the best of circumstances. That's why I was focusing on imagination as our power. It seems like we should be focusing on strength and wisdom and faith, but what if we really just dive deep into the truth that we have the power to imagine the highest, the best of all outcomes for all of humanity, right here and right now. To do otherwise is to give away my peace, to give away my joy, to give away my strength. And I don't know about you, but I work too hard to get where I am today to just give it away to this circumstance or any other.
That's a great point. And what I realize with that is that it brings us to a point where we have to face that we are open to unlimited possibilities. Mm-hmm. That our past, any thought we've had in the past, has no effect on now. And with that unlimited possibility, there's doors to be opened that we haven't even arrived at the door yet. Mm-hmm. There's new possibility within us that we haven't been available to yet. There's awakening possible for us if we listen, where we can become aware, oh, I'm an extrovert. I need to be around people. Hello, well, I know that. Let's see how we can use our imagination from a mind that's at peace, from a mind that's centered, where we can focus on the truth and allow us to be informed and not be afraid of our freedom, but embrace our freedom. Because freedom means that nothing's predetermined. Mm-hmm. We can make all new choices. So we stand in freedom in this season of peace and nonviolence, in recognizing the great work of Gandhi and King, they are examples of how powerful we can change anything, and there is no physical force stronger than that knowing.
Amen.
So we're free, and there is unlimited possibility available to us right now. Mm-hmm. And right now. And right now.
Do you want to wrap us up with Charles?
Co-founder Charles Fillmore. We conclude our talk by looking at his wisdom. We begin right where we are to bring forth the kingdom of God within us. So with our conversation, with our musings, we've come around this circle of looking at the mystery of God. Mm-hmm. That's to be found right within us. And as we find that right within us, we become present to what it is we need to deal with today. What are we going to eat? How are we going to respond to this? How are we going to be of service? How are we going to be in oneness and know that this truth of God lives by us living, by us being. And that unravels the mystery because we know where we are. We know who we are. And we know why we're here. And isn't that something to be grateful for?
It is. It is, because right here and right now is perfection. Mm-hmm. And it is our filter and our interpretation that informs us differently. And the mystery for me in knowing that we are in perfection right now is the delicious excitement about where we might be going. So I'm in. I'm hanging in. I'm staying on the ride.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here today, Maggie. Let's take this into meditation. I'm going to ask you to, wherever you are, as long as it's safe to do so, to close your eyes, to breathe, and center yourself in your heart. Center yourself in where you design your center to be. And there we find our sense of peace. Where we focus our mind with our heart. And in that we breathe easily and effortlessly. And as we take this time now to just be and allow, we affirm peace. We affirm wholeness. We affirm oneness. And we allow ourselves to rest now in a moment of silence. May we evermore be grateful for this opportunity that we have to just be in oneness and peace. We're grateful for this opportunity of time together, this conversation. And let's allow ourselves to take what we've discerned as truth for ourselves and allow that to be our guide in this day for whatever we choose to do. And let's keep the invitation for imagination open for us, because we can choose again. And something might be available that we hadn't even thought of before. So as we return back into our awareness of where we are, wherever we are, let's bring ourselves into that awareness by knowing a truth, this affirmation that goes along with the talk that we've had today. So you might, wherever you are, if you're comfortable, to say this out loud together. I embrace the wonder of God that is moving in and through all life. And so it is.
Step back.